Oh, I just want to do the audio clip. I'm a vampire. I'm a vampire. I'm a vampire. Hey guys, hopefully this will have been going live. Let me check. Check 1, check 2. First of all, happy birthday, Alex.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It is my birthday. I got a big balloon with a 3.
Oh, wait, that man, I've already posted. Yeah. Hell yeah. Guys, this is Cinema Bias. This is VideoDrew, and with me, as always, we have Alex Mack.
Hello.
The birthday girl.
Yeah.
How was your birthday, Alex? I heard you had to have some internet troubles.
Yeah, we didn't get to do some of the stuff that we initially had planned, but Lucas is pretty amazing. He definitely made it. He made it special. I came downstairs with an abundance of balloons. I had a banner thingy. I had a crown. Lucas, if you're watching, can you give me a crown? Lucas, can you bring down my crown? It's actually a really nice crown.
Yeah, bring her crown, Lucas.
Give me my crown.
He demands it.
I demand my crown.
Well, it's a crazy time to be going through all this. I'm glad we got to do this show today. It's been really hard to figure out what to do about pop culture when the world seems like it's on fire. So I just wanted everyone to know that, yeah, if you guys do feel like donating, as always, we have our Streamlabs. It is streamlabs.com/VideoDrew. This entire week, we're going to continue donating anything we make to the Los Angeles Bail Bond Fund, which is what we did yesterday when we did, what did we do? We did The Wedding Singer and Cabin in the Woods quiz. You know, those two movies that go together so well.
Totally.
Hi, comment people. Hi, Weston. Hi, Stardrew. Oh, there we go.
Oh, wait. Let me see if I can get this on. I'm going to take off my headphones for a hot minute.
Okay.
Okay. Right. Again.
Wow, hold on.
Wait.
This is supposed to be a hot mess day. Okay.
Again. Haha.
Ooh, beautiful. So I got a message from you earlier today that said,
yes.
Let me see if I can read it directly. It says, okay.
Yes, go for it.
We're doing Vampire's Kiss, right? And I said, yep. And she said, you said, I knew this movie was going to beard, but what the F? LOL. This is bonkers. And then the crying face emoji, which I guess leads us into the idea of what Cinema Bias is. Cinema Bias is a show where Alex and I have very different taste in films.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to show each other our different sort of, explore the palette, the international cuisine of movies by forcing different kinds of films down each other's eyeballs. And this was a film that we picked for when everything looked like it was going back to normal a couple weeks ago, before everything blew up again. So like that is what we decided to go with. This happens to be one of my favorite movies, maybe of all time, which is that pretty much says something. I know I say that basically every week.
That is very, I don't want to say expected after watching the movie, but at the same time, I can 150 million% understand that. That feels very in line with your personality.
I mean, this movie is something that wasn't shown to me till later in life. I was already out of college when I saw this film, and it was a friend's house. I remember he had a poster up. My friend Ricky, he had a poster up in his room that had this movie. And it was this before the whole Nic Cage renaissance. Although I guess you could argue Nic Cage has always been going through a renaissance. Nic Cage has always been Nic Cage. Nic Cage is the constant throughout life that just keeps going the way he's going. And everybody else just yeah. That guy owns most haunted houses in in New Orleans, I believe. He owns at least 6 haunted houses. I think he owns Marie Laveau's house, like that woman that Kathy Bates played on American Horror Story.
Yeah, no big deal. Just a bunch of really casual serial killers, crazy, everything.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but Nic Cage is like what happens if Keanu Reeves takes meth. Maybe? Does that track?
I like Nic Cage. I really do.
Nic Cage. I love Nic Cage, and this movie.
Dislike him.
No. This movie is why I like Nic Cage, because this movie, Vampire's Kiss, is the movie that lets you know that like all those times we were making fun of Nic Cage for doing like a Wicker Man and the bees and the bees, like and screaming, he was aware of what he was doing.
Yes.
Because this is the movie where he starts out and he's just going at it so hard, and this movie is supposed to be a comedy. So So let's get into it. Let's get into our first segment. What's your bias? So you said you like Nic Cage. What's your sort of history with him?
Well, I like Nic Cage because he's one of those actors that knows what he's doing especially when it comes to a lot of these campy, cultish, weird movies. And I really love that about him. A lot of actors, they make a conscious effort to be like, acting is an art form. It is you have to go to school to learn it. You have to do blah, 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 blah. It is something you take seriously. And Nic Cage is one of the actors. I don't know how he is about when it comes to the intensity of his acting style, but at the same time, he always seems like he has fun with the roles he picks. He always has fun with the idea of what he's doing with these weird characters. Hey, Eric, what's up, boy? Mm-hmm. And I love that about him. A lot of actors, they're scared to. I feel like scared is a wrong word to say, but a lot of actors don't like to pick roles that make them look stupid or weird. And Cage is like, screw all that. I want that weirdness. I want to scream and yell the ABCs,
the whole alphabet,
or nursery rhymes, or just scream with my head in a cage. It's weird, and I love that. Yeah.
If you just Google Nicolas Cage GIF, and you guys can all take a moment and just Google like Nic Cage and like GIF, Google image search and just press GIF. The majority of images you're gonna see are from this movie. Yeah. So this entire time you've been like watching it, being like, oh, like Nic Cage is so good. Let's do a weird Nic Cage face. You're doing Nic Cage in this movie. And we'll get to the part of where we'll talk, Lucas, about what his accent is, because this is one of those things where like I'm like a human Wikipedia when it comes to the Vampire's Kiss movie, because it's just like one of those things I'm obsessed with. Last week it was Scar's Wikipedia from Lion King, and this week I get to re-delve into my love of Vampire's Kiss. A-B-C-D-E-F-G H-J-K, L-M-N-O-P, Q-R-S-T-U-V-W-X-Y-Z.
Well, okay, with that being said, can you tell me more about, like you said, you went over to your friend's house that introduced it to you. It was after college. Where was it what were you guys like in a
I remember exactly
in
what
a
I was
house
saying.
bedroom or something?
I remember saying, because this was at the time, this was like, mid-aughts, and I was like, Nic Cage kind of sucks, dude. Like, why do you have a Nic Cage? Like, he's corny. Like, Nic Cage, you mean like the dude from the National Treasure movies? Like, Nic Cage, like the Wicker Man Nic Cage? He was like, you mean Nic Cage, the actual National Treasure? And I was like, explain more. Because I'd seen some movies that he's been great in. Adaptation, famously, like he was so fantastic in Adaptation. Won the Academy Award for Leaving Las Vegas. I forgot, he might have been nominated for Adaptation as well, because he was fantastic in that. Matchstick Men, Moonlight,
he's won an Oscar.
Yeah, for Leaving Las Vegas.
Yes, but he was nominated for Best Actor in a Lead Role from Adaptation. Yes.
Yeah, Adaptation he was great in. Like, that's just him just dialing it down. He's still weird, but he's like dialing it down. And like Leaving Las Vegas is great. Wild at Heart's great. But I guess there's this idea now that Nic Cage is like a joke, instead of like Nic Cage is like a very self-aware, transcendent being. Like we like to make fun of Nic Cage, or like be like he's our idol, or like he's our totem or spirit animal. But I think Nic Cage is Nic Cage's own spirit animal in a lot of ways. Yeah. I think Nic Cage can probably be a regular dude if he wants. But we'll get into why in this movie he might have made. We can speculate on some of the choices he made, including his accent. But first, let's take 60 seconds. See if we can do this. See if we can describe the plot. I'm gonna get my countdown because I know the timer doesn't work on a app. So
yeah, the movie in particular, I only watched it a few hours ago, so the movie is intensely fresh in my head, and I was like trying to take down notes watching it.
This is not that kind of movie.
Yeah, so I always like to make note of like, oh, my favorite scenes. Oh, these are like that. That was a really cool line I heard, so I like to make note of that, things like that. But this one, I was like, I'm putting away the notepad, putting away the pen and pencil. I'm just gonna absorb everything. But okay,
isn't that a sign of a great performance? No, isn't that a sign of a great performance? You don't have, this movie doesn't like. You're not like trying to be like, oh, this is a great thing for film class, or I see what they did there. That's very clever. You were like, what the fuck is going on? Like, I watched this with Eric for the first time. We were doing one of the NerdChronic commentaries, and I gotta say, I'm not sure how great it's going to turn out, because he wasn't talking the entire time. He was just like sitting there going like this the entire movie. No offense, Eric. The episode's going to be great. I covered for you. So, Alex, give our audience maybe just a hot 60 seconds if you can. You can always cede your time if you need to, like that guy talking to the LAPD. But 60 seconds, go.
A lawyer in New York City. He ends up, he has a very strained relationship with his secretary. He goes to a club. He ends up bringing her back, meets this vampire chick at a club. He brings her back to his apartment, and they end up having sex, and she bites him all sexy like, and she seems like a vampire. So he's like, I'm a vampire now. What? Or maybe he's not a vampire. I don't know. But he ends up being kind of, ever since their first interaction, he's kind of dazed. He's like weird. He also has been going pretty consistently throughout the movie, seeing his psychiatrist, Dr. Glasson. And it's just pretty much that progression from there. His interactions with people around him starts to get much more aggressive with him and his pseudo girlfriend, him and his secretary, his casual acquaintances, the taxi drivers and everything in the car. But again, with every interaction with this vampire chick that he ends up meeting a few times later on, and he ends up getting much more. Well, I'm almost done. He ends up becoming this idea that he's a vampire becomes more and more ingrained in his head, and his entire physicality, his manner of speaking, his sanity essentially changes as a result of these interactions. And so by the end, you're like, "What the F happened?"
Oh, that's a really great job. You filled all those 60 seconds with a plot that I feel like that's a pretty good explanation of the plot. There's a couple small things. He's not a lawyer, although it's very easy why you could confuse him for being a lawyer, because what he is makes no sense. He is a book publisher. He works for a book. That's why they're trying to find the files for the novel.
I stand corrected. Yeah, I thought that was related to the contract with a client or something. I know it. Yeah,
it is a contract. They're trying to find the original manuscript for the contract. By the way, thank you so much, Flash 818487. Yeah, Matchstick Man was one of my favorite too. That's where he's
love that movie. He's a con man.
And Sam Rockwell, Sam Rockwell, so good. So a couple other things. His secretary Alva, who's a big part of this film. She's not the same woman that he goes out with in the beginning of the movie that he keeps standing up, nor is that the same woman as the vampire. It's a very confusing thing where
they look similar-ish.
And that's for a reason, or more like it was for an accident. They couldn't get the actress for the entire movie that they had hired to play, I think, either the vampire or the girl in the beginning. And so they just hired this other girl that looked exactly like her. I think originally it was supposed to be the girl that he was seeing turns him into a vampire. Instead, it's just this unrelated person. Or bat, or maybe nothing. This movie reminds me a lot of American Psycho in a lot of ways, although it predates American Psycho.
Interesting double feature. That would be a solid double feature.
I mean, it really is about like the master of the universe, like white man going insane, like really taking it to the next level. But it's already a guy in power, which is, I think this movie has some satirical comments that are actually as well done as American Psycho, if not maybe sometimes better because they hit funnier beats. But the idea that this is the guy with all the power and what, the discomfort you have while he stalks and belittles his secretary, and does all these horrible things to her because he's obsessed with her.
And no one says anything about it. If anything, he's literally screaming. He jumps on a desk at one point.
He runs to the women's bathroom.
Yeah,
and he starts screaming at her.
Oh my gosh, it's terrifying. I do feel like that's very similar to American Psycho. Now that you say it, I can't really unsee it, but it's definitely a commentary, low key, a commentary on the white man. Because if anything, people talk about him even after seeing that, and they're like, "Oh, he's so eccentric."
Yeah, or they make fun of it. There's
he's eccentric.
This is a man who, in the middle of the day, goes out into the lobby of his office, jumps on top of a desk and goes, "There you are!" and then chases one of his secretaries into the women's bathroom where he proceeds to accost her. And the next scene is him and a bunch of his bosses laughing about it and being like, "Quaaludes are a hell of a drug." And they're like, "Yeah, she keeps a gun in her purse. That's weird." It's just and they're like, "How dare she ask for a raise?" It's a real it's a real gross thing. The part where she is supposed to be a Latino woman, that she lives in a different part of New York. That's about, she lives in Queens, I believe. And back then, like, it was not that safe to take the train at night from Queens, from the city. So that is like a whole plot that you're supposed to be able to like understand. So that she's like, they keep mentioning like, why don't you just quit? Or they say, I'm going to fire you. And she's like very scared that she'll have to go back to cleaning floors. And you get one scene where she's just staring. She's being kept late at work at night, and she's just staring at the janitor. And she's just like, you can just see her like weighing it out in her head, being like, Brr. So that's just like the brief cultural commentary I think this film has to offer. And the rest of it's just Nic Cage wildin'. Like the real scenes in this movie have to do with him and his psychiatrist, his therapist, and him just on the streets of New York screaming like a crazy person with a wooden stake under his arm and like just blood smeared all over his mouth because he bit a woman in a nightclub and he's hallucinating being in a therapy session. And
also he just straight up stole a pigeon at one point
from the park,
and he just like plucked that pigeon and just start
So
alive.
There's some just really fantastic things here that like even in his own delusions, because we're living most of this movie through Nicolas Cage's delusions, we get a sense that he's not very well in the head before anything happens. He has this laugh where he goes, ha 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 ha. Like he has this very like Patrick Bateman, not a real person, someone just imitating humanity. Like the whole movie seems like an affectation. Lucas brought up his accent. He does talk in this really weird way that's like, I think they called it pseudo-Transylvanian mid-Atlantic, where he's like, A, B, C, D. And it's like real nasally. Like he's like, like he's just doing a lot of weird vocal things.
And you can't forget his hand motions. Or at one point,
his whole physicality.
Like, he doesn't give. There was like one where he doesn't shake someone's hand. He holds it like this.
Yes,
he does that.
And he's a very strange
going
man.
on.
He does things that are inexplicable, even to like the audience. If you were supposed to understand why he invites a woman to meet him at a museum and then runs out through the back door, like just to ditch her, or then when she's angry at him because he invited her a third time out and ditched her once again at a bar, and she leaves a note on his door saying, like, "Get out of my life." He takes the note, looks at it like the most intense person has ever looked at anything in life, and just starts vibrating and tearing up the note. We don't have any motivation. We don't know why this person is the way they are, but it is just so much fun to watch. It is someone going,
well, watching this movie, just kind of going about the plot, it's like really, it's very interesting. It's from the very beginning, it came out in 1988, 89, and the late 80s. And at the time, there was, when people talked about horror comedies, I do know obviously horror comedies was definitely a thing, obviously Army of Darkness, all that good stuff. But at the same time, a lot of vampire movies in this tone wasn't really a thing. If you're talking about vampires, they're sexy, they're moody, it's dramatic. It's much more focused on horror thriller or that romance aspect. It's not so much funny.
Well, we didn't have Eddie Murphy. We did have Eddie Murphy's Vampire in Brooklyn. True. It's more that like Nic Cage as a human. Sorry, this is gonna be me trying to do something. Nic Cage as a person. If you watch the very first film that he's in, it's Peggy Sue Got Married. Yes. So he's a Coppola, right? He's Francis Ford Coppola's
he's like his nephew or something.
Yeah, he's like a nephew or something. He's sort of like Jason Schwartzman. He's on the other side of the family, Schwartzman. Mm-hmm. So I think in Peggy Sue Got Married, when Kathleen Turner ended up writing her autobiography a couple years back, she mentioned like how awful Nic Cage was on set. And if you watch that movie, he's doing something very strange with his voice in that one too, where he talks like this, like the entire movie, even though it's like not necessary for a character to talk like this. Like he's just talking like that. And she said that he was trying so hard to prove that he earned his place as an actor, that was like a choice. And he thought like that just meant that he was acting. So like he decided to go big with it because he didn't want anyone to know that he was a Coppola and got a role because he had family in the business. Mm-hmm. And I feel like if you take that idea and extend it to the entirety of like Nic Cage's career, you have something like really interesting to look at. Like this is a man who maybe is the opposite of Francis Ford Coppola. in a lot of ways. Like he just is. I would never expect to see the two of them do anything together. Their tones are like the opposite.
The director?
Yeah, that's his uncle.
Yeah, no, I mean, why would we ever compare the two? Like,
because that's like who he's trying to, like, you know how a lot of guys have dad issues where they're trying to outshine their dad or like whatever. I feel like Nic Cage has a thing where he doesn't want to be thought of as even how Sofia Coppola got to be known as Sofia Coppola.
I mean, that makes sense because they're both directors, but like you said, it's different. Like, obviously, if you're he
doesn't want to be thought of as a kid who got in Hollywood because his dad's or his uncle's an actor. So he decided to change his last name, and he decided to make every decision be super weird. For instance, there's a scene in this movie where he eats a cockroach. The script didn't call for him to eat the cockroach. They didn't ask him to eat a cockroach. Like he just did it. And not only did he do it, like it was just supposed to skitter off the camera. Then he was like, "Bring me another cockroach. I want to do that take again." And they were like, you know, it's that sort of commitment to unnecessary method acting that I think makes this movie really special.
Yeah.
By the way, you're getting a lot of happy birthdays in the comments. I'm just checking out. Sorry, guys. If I seem very excited, it's because it's Vampire's Kiss night and it's Alex's birthday. So I know you got a happy birthday from Andres. Is saying there.
Oh, yes.
And other people in the comments are just mentioning comedy vampire movies like Vampire in Brooklyn, Once Bitten. Oh, the Jim Carrey movie. That's great, guys.
Oh, I forgot about that movie.
Thanks for the tip, Sean. That's going to go to a great place. Yeah, Once Bitten is... Was that before Earth Girls Were Easy? Who can remember?
Let me find out.
So another thing is this movie has Jennifer Beals in it. You know, Flashdance is Jennifer Beals. Oh. That's the one they couldn't like afford to keep the entirety of like the filming of it.
It was kind of funny as well, though. I mean, like seeing her, I'm like, one, she is stunning, absolutely gorgeous. But it's also at the same time, it was almost distracting whenever there were the sex scenes. Like you could see the boob tape.
Oh yeah.
The perfectly formed boob tape all around when she's like biting him or something, and it's just like.
To this day, I don't know. Is she playing the vampire or is she playing the girl that he sees later at a club? Like I am unclear because these actresses look very similar. Whoever they got to like replace her. Yeah, he did get into Hollywood because of nepotism. Exactly. But he's going to do everything to prove that, like, he earned his place at the table.
But okay, the girl that played Jackie, she's actually a director that's been in a handful of movies. She was in Silence of the Lambs, for example. I believe she's been nominated for a handful of awards as well. Hey, thank you so much, Adam.
That's just the girlfriend. Yeah. That's the girl he keeps leaving at a bar. Jennifer Beals is the vampire.
Yes. Yeah. But yeah, she's Jackie's also the one that he ditches at the restaurant, not only the restaurant, the bar.
Yeah, he just did her 3 different times during the course of this movie. There's one chick in New York who's obsessed with him. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you talking about her looking like Jennifer Beal?
No. The woman. First of all, she does kind of, but it's more like the woman at the end.
Like the hair. Yeah, but I mean, they're completely different races.
No. The woman at the end, where he goes into a club and he thinks he sees her, but it's a different actress entirely playing the vampire.
I remember Jennifer Beal being at that club at the very end.
I believe that's not actually Jennifer Beals. Well, we can look into it. But
with the blonde-haired dude, where she's like, "You disgust me." Ugh.
Yeah, I think that was somebody else.
That's totally her.
You know what? I will concede maybe that I am misremembering that. So no one checked the wiki on this. But I do remember that they couldn't get her for all of filming. So there are some scenes where it's just like some chick that kind of looks like Jennifer Beals is going to be interspersed into this. Since they probably shot it out of order, I'm not sure exactly what scene it is. She does have a really good sense,
though, that they shot out of order.
I mean, all movies are shot out of order unless they're 1917. Like most movies are shot not sequentially.
To what extent, though?
Yes.
To what extent?
So let's talk real quick about a next kind of portion of this, which is, and this was an episode of Community. So let me pause this for a second before we talk about favorite characters and moments. Do you think Nic Cage is a good actor? Do you think this is good acting? Right?
Like, I feel like it deserves its own category of acting. if that
he
makes
ate
sense.
a cockroach twice for this movie. You can't doubt that he's committed.
I mean, but you
doing.
can be. I can be committed to being an actor in a movie. Doesn't mean I'm going to be good at acting. You know, that's irrelevant.
That's absolutely true.
Yeah,
but
I mean,
like, this movie is him being a good actor.
That's thing. I don't know because on one hand he's purposefully and playfully being ridiculous, and where it doesn't feel like I can't take him seriously as an actor in this role. So I can't. I don't know. Like is Tommy Wiseau like acting really good? But the thing is, he's doing it purposefully.
Yeah, so this was him trying to. So Moonstruck came out very around the same time, and Moonstruck is a fantastic film with him and Cher. That's one where he has one hand, and he's also kind of crazy in that, but less so.
I've heard he's good at it. I've never seen it.
Oh, he's fantastic in it. Yeah. He's fantastic, and he's off the chains in it too. Like he's I lost my hand. I lost my wife. Danny didn't lose his hand. Danny didn't lose his wife. But this was him taking a method acting approach to a surreal character. So this was him trying to go method into the mind of a character that's not really, I think, well enough written to go into the mind of. So
if that's the case, I would say he's not acting really good then.
Yeah.
If he's taking it seriously, where he's like, I am going into the mind of someone that's slowly be driven insane by this event.
But it's supposed to be a comedy.
Yeah. No, absolutely. But as being driven insane, I would say that. Does he know that going into it? Because some movies are not considered comedies until later on.
No, this is a comedy.
Did he know it when filming?
Yes. Absolutely, yeah. So this was written as a comedy. It's a satire, but like you can tell from the script that like even though some parts are just so bonkers that you're like, is this David Lynch? Like, is it self-aware? There are like other lines that they're beats, they're things to clue you into the fact that, especially near the end, where he's just talking on the street to himself and he's being silly. By the way, those scenes were shot like guerrilla style. Those were actual people reacting to Nic Cage running down the street, covered in blood, screaming at like lamp poles with a stake under his arm. That was actually just happening. Like that was just Nic Cage reacting in the world, which is how I'd like to imagine he just goes around his day hoping that someone's filming.
Yes.
Tommy Wiseau isn't like aware how bad he is, or Nic Cage I feel like plays up for comedy.
Yeah, I like I mentioned, it's just an example. I don't feel like they're on the same level. Obviously, Wiseau is like he's just a bad actor. He just doesn't realize it. It feels like Cage is purposefully has this ridiculous acting style, but he purposely does this kind of camp specifically, I guess, and he really heightens his camp. It's almost like Mommy Dearest, essentially.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, actually, scratch that. Maybe not Mommy Dearest, because filming Mommy Dearest, they filmed it. When they made Mommy Dearest, they filmed it thinking it was going to be an intense drama. They didn't make it at camp until later on. Like the director,
he's doing white straight man drag. Because he's playing things up for a camp value that you usually only associate with someone doing like a drag queen show. Like it is that big. It's that big of a performance. It's that much. But he's doing like it's almost like an alien coming down from Earth and being like doing a camp version of like what a straight white man would act like if they were going crazy. Like he purposely made his eyes as big. He like hurt himself trying to make his eyes as wide as possible. He physically hurt himself to make this comedy that bizarrely not that many people have heard about, and in which you can't really tell that he's aware that he's doing a comedy because he takes the comedy so seriously, if that makes any sense. So I don't have an answer about whether or not I personally think he's become a really good actor because he's learned how to tone it down and do subtle stuff.
No,
like
absolutely.
You know?
But that being said, I did not laugh that much watching this overall.
No, Alex.
No, I giggled once or twice just because of the ridiculousness of the scene. But watching him in particular, I didn't laugh that much. I was just like,
we watched it with Andre.
I feel like, huh. huh.
Really? See, in hindsight, I thought that
I was the entire time except for like 2 laughs. Once I figured out what I was watching.
What were the laugh moments for you, Alex? Do you have it?
Once was, I think it was when Jennifer Beal when Jennifer Beal's Rachel, she discovered him underneath she found him underneath like the couch thing, and he like created this like pseudo coffin situation for himself, and I was like, idiot.
When he goes shoo.
Yeah, that also the ABCD thing. And I think that was it. And also I was just like,
it's so
chatting
big
with his colleagues.
Yeah.
About Alva. Well.
It's a very dark comedy in the sense that it has a really dark ending. It has some real dark beats. Him and his secretary, at one point he threatens to rape her. Like, she has a gun. She shoots him, but we've learned that she only has blanks in the guns, but he thinks that now he's immune to bullets. He does torture. Like, there's a part of this that's not funny, and I'm not sure if it's just because it's in retrospect and we're watching it right now, but like,
not gonna lie. Yeah,
it's super dark, and it's not, I guess it has sort of the same dynamic as Chloe, not Chloe, what's her name, in American Psycho, and Patrick Bateman, when it's his secretary and Patrick, and they have sort of a weird dynamic where he's in control of her and gets
Chloe Sevigny.
Yeah. It's kind of like that, but this is way worse. And it's, she keeps getting pulled back into the trap of like going with him because he'll show up somewhere and be like, "Don't worry, I'm back to normal. Don't worry. Like, oh, whoops, I just totally messed up the other day. I was on mescaline. Like, come back to work. It's fine." He needs her to find these files that we find out early on the guy doesn't even need for work. Like, he gets a phone call from his from the author who says, "Don't worry about the files," while he's on the phone to Alva, and he lies about it. I don't think we know enough about the character to understand what Nic Cage was doing with it.
He clearly, his character is clearly having this. He's clearly obsessed with this idea of having power over her. I guess where maybe he feels like he doesn't have that much power in his personal or professional life. So what little power he has over his secretary, he really maximizes it to the nth degree just because he can. And that's really horrible.
Well, we do find out that he hates women. Like, that's something that comes very clear. He hates women. He has this woman therapist, but like he doesn't respect her at all. He doesn't respect this woman he keeps going out with, but he keeps saying he wants to find true love, and that, like, at the end of the day is what he's saying that he wants to have. And when he has this imagination, like in the third act, he just goes bonkers. He kills a woman by biting her with biting her like neck and just, I guess, opening an artery. We find out that is real because we see newspaper like clarifying that's real. It's right around the stake, and then he's having a hallucination in which his therapist is setting him up with another patient of his.
And he admitted at that time, it's like, yeah, I totally just killed this chick at a club, and I raped my secretary last week.
And they're like, nobody's perfect. That's how you know it's a comedy, because that's very funny.
Also, they're all the cops my way. I'll take care of it.
Yep.
That was this completely fabricated idea of his psychiatrist, his therapy session, how it went when he's talking to a wall.
And within that story, then he goes off. And by the way, he's just running down the street screaming, "I'm a vampire," while this is all happening. He's imagining he's in therapy. Then he goes on a date, like in his head, he goes on a date with this woman, and they immediately get into it. Like, even in his head, he can't, with this perfect woman he's created, he can't not fight with her. He can't find a way that she's a bitch. Like, he immediately just starts calling her names. They immediately get into it, and he basically dies that way because Alva's brother comes to the house and pushes a stake through his heart.
Yeah, it is. It was also very frustrating to see not only the casual use of him yelling, "Oh, I'm gonna rape you." There was that, and then he goes, that also
does not work for me.
it was really rough. That, but also, her mom, her mom, she's like, I don't want to go. I don't. And he's like, no, you have to go, blah, blah, blah. And at that point, she didn't tell her mom or her brother what happened. She tells her brother later. But she's mentioned, pretty consistently throughout the movie, I don't want to go to work. I'm scared.
She tells her boss.
Yeah. And, and everyone's like very dismissive of her feelings. And every time she tries to talk about those feelings, with her family, and that happens, unfortunately, a lot to a lot of victims, which is awful.
Look, I think that even the relationship,
also with the racial dynamic, it's really frustrating as well. Just an extra layer of like,
it's so painful, some of this. However, I do think that you get this one good beat about something that exists outside of his world, which is one night he calls his therapist and she comes to the phone and she answers it and she kind of shrugs him off, and we find her and it pulls back and she's got this 20-year-old boy toy. It's like a 60-year-old woman and she's got 50-something. And she's got a 20-year-old boy toy in the bed with her, and you're just like, wait, what? What's going on there? The movie is full of these tiny little beats. At one point, they're leaving the house, and there are these two mimes that are in the street. They're pantomiming a fight, and it's just the weirdest thing in the world. They slap each other, and one falls, and it's what reality does this movie take place in?
Yeah, this definitely the entire movie almost it feels very dreamlike.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense, where there's entire scenes where you're like, this doesn't seem real. This kind of interaction is just bonkers. So I was kind of thinking it towards the very end that, because honestly, I didn't realize it was going to be all in his head. Oh, spoilers. It's all in his head. That
he does kill a woman and try to rape another woman.
But I didn't realize. I thought she was Rachel was an actual vampire until halfway through, and I was like, okay. It's he never actually gets fangs. He never actually does this. Blah blah blah. He doesn't. Nothing actually happens when he goes out into the sun or anything. So it does take me a little bit, because I'm still thinking, because Rachel is seen with things.
Wait, Andres, is that true? Is that her brother? I thought that would be so weird if it was her brother. I just think that was just another guy. If it just happened that Alva's brother was the person sleeping with the therapist, that'd be super weird. Maybe
a random little
well, we do get something early on though, which is the night after he sleeps with Rachel for the first time, or he thinks he slept with this woman. He wakes up and he makes breakfast. You see a thing where she's biting his neck and he's like, and you're like, uh-oh, vampire thing. And then the next morning he wakes up, he makes breakfast, he's whistling to himself, he brings it to the bed, and he hands the cup over to nobody. And he's shaking his hand, but he's acting like somebody's there. And that increases over the course of the film. So I'm not sure when I first saw it, whether I just thought he was doing a, what's the name of the guy from Dracula who's his little bitch?
I know what you're talking about.
That guy. The guy who eats the bugs, the literal the bug eater guy. Not Van Helsing. Somebody help me out. So I couldn't tell, maybe I think at first whether he was crazy or whether he was being turned crazy by a vampire that he found. I think what he told his therapist early on about how he got really turned on, chasing away the bat, was basically the truest thing you'll ever get to a motivation for why any of the events occur. Something really turned me on.
I honestly felt aside from that scene with his therapist, all the other scenes with his therapist were completely fabricated.
Well, you do get that thing where she's talking on the phone, so you get that.
But that's not a therapy session.
Mm-hmm.
But that scene where he talks about how horny he got for the bat, flying it around, that's one thing. I think that was real, but all other interactions with his therapist, aside from that phone call, was fabricated, essentially.
So let's talk about some of your favorite moments from this. I know we've been going through basically just a litany of our favorite moments, guys. I don't want to get flagged on this channel right after getting monetized, or else I'd play you just the supercut. You can go on YouTube and just look up Vampires Kiss Supercut. There's a 2-minute version, and then there's an 8-minute version. And the 8-minute version basically gives you everything you need to know about what this movie is. It's real hard edits. It's real abrupt. And just understand that this movie is silly. It's a man acting his heart out, acting very seriously for a very silly thing. Ultimately, I think. But I think it sort of molded Cage. It kind of molded Cage into the actor that he would turn out to be. This is sort of what led to him doing Wicker Man or Face Off or like any of these movies.
It's not even his best performance, though.
No, it's not. It's not his best performance, but it's his commitment to doing that performance.
Yeah, and it's I don't think I think he did do a lot of weird things in this movie. It felt like he was experimenting with the roles and he was trying something new, absolutely. But I don't think he was particularly great at it. I think, but I also feel like if you're going to be funny, you need to, in order to be funny, you need to be serious in other parts of the other roles to really, make that dynamic really clear, to emphasize how funny it is when those moments do come. However, it's very consistent throughout how ridiculous it is. So because it was so constant, it never felt truly good.
I think that's true, because there's no place that you can fall from. There's no like, this is him sane and this is him insane. He seems like a crazy person who's just like not doing anything bad when the movie starts out. He's talking in this accent. I'm just going to give you a quote, and maybe this will help on people to understand what he's talking about. His accent, according to the AV Club, which called this movie the Nicolas Cage's best, most out of control performance. His Cage isn't identified as British, but some kind of accent comes out of his mouth anyway, flickering in and out like a fluorescent bulb, and it's impossible to pin down. The most likely explanation is that Cage imagined the character as a fop, the type of ivory tower Manhattanite whose exalted sense of privilege naturally leads to a hilariously affected manner of speech. But let's just say, for the sake of the argument, Peter is British, and Cage utterly failed to stick the landing in that accent. Does that mean his performance isn't somehow the best of his career? Of course it doesn't. So a lot of people like agree that this it's not that this is the best performance, it's just that this is Cage come Cage. This is Cage.
I think, I think at this point in his career, he was like you said, he was almost experimenting, messing around. He's like, I want to be serious. I do want to be a serious actor and everything, and I want to show my chops with this, with my physicality, because you can't deny his physicality behind this in this role is really great. Actually, I really like that aspect of it, especially when it comes to physical comedy. Physical comedy is very difficult to do. But I'm not saying he's amazing at it. He's not Jim Carrey or anything by any means. But at the same time, his body language changed significantly from the start to the end, and that's something I really, really appreciated. I mean, and I also loved, the mention of, it's almost like whenever it was after he spent the night with Rachel and Renfield.
That's the name of the guy from Dracula.
Yeah. There was, and he, excuse me, and he ended up seeing the Nosferatu movie, and she's like,
he makes him watch Nosferatu, and that way so he learns how to like walk like this.
It's like he's just like, oh, I guess this is how vampires are supposed to be, so I'm going to be starting to do this.
It's even though he's trying to imitate a vampire. And it's all, and that to me is pretty good. Like I feel like I agree with you. If he had started this movie out lower key on a lower level, then we could have seen him dissolving. Because when you watch American Psycho, it starts out and Patrick's just like a blank canvas, and you don't even get till halfway through until you see like him murder somebody. And then by the end of the movie, there's the helicopters. Maybe it's all happening, maybe it's not, and he's just covered in blood and he's freaking out and his eyes are bulging. But we have something to compare it to, and it's the facade of a person. This guy starts out already talking in a voice that's so freaking bonkers that you'd be excused to be confused about whether or not Cage himself thought he was doing a real person's accent. Yes. Or like, so when he then pretends to be a vampire, when the character pretends to be a vampire, you don't know if maybe that's just what Nic Cage pretends that vampires are like. The differentiation between Nic Cage and this character is like very, very hard to like parse, considering that nobody asked to eat a cockroach.
You know what? He tried pulling a Daniel Day-Lewis, and I respect that, out of from it. He is an actor that, takes the art very seriously, and I, not only very respect that, but he did it twice. and no one told him to, and he took that risk, which is a huge deal, especially when it comes to comedy. Comedy is so difficult to do very well, especially. But it's almost like just compared to a very small horror movie that no one really cares about, The Shining. That's what's that, right? Crazy. But thing is, with The Shining, what I love and hate about The Shining is that Jack Torrance, right out the gate, he's a weenie, and you know it. He's already like off hinge a little bit. He's already at like an 8, and by the end he's at a 10. But it's already close enough. If he went in at exactly
that about his performance, he didn't like, he thought the character needed to unravel because Jack Torrance starts out as a good man who goes crazy, but Kubrick was like, you just played him like he was a nutty guy. So like the horror of what the hotel did to him seems irrelevant.
So, I mean, but that's an entire conversation, other conversation about The Shining. Absolutely. We can have a 10-hour episode talking about The Shining and about theories and symbolism and all that good stuff. But,
I did find an article I want to tell you a little bit about. So, and I'll just intersperse it. So you tell me one of your favorite scenes, and I will tell you, let's say 3 things that you can learn from the director and Nic Cage commentary of this film, because there's a list of 47 things that the Film School rejects found out.
When was the commentary done?
The commentary was done pretty recently. I'm guessing it was. It doesn't have a year on it. Oh, that's fun. Let's see what the comments say.
Like looking back at it from like 2000 versus like yesterday.
I have no idea. Let's say Film School Rejects was relevant at the same time that most blogs were, so let's call it mid-aughts. Mid-late aughts.
Yeah. I would probably have to be the ABC misfile scene. It's like, where it's just like, it could have been misfiled. Or another one is just like when you see him for the first time, like walk into his office where he's just like,
So like you mentioned, there was a part where he picks a pigeon up and he eats it.
Like hunching the entire time.
So Nic Cage was apparently very proud of himself on set for being able to catch that pigeon, but then the director had to admit to him that the pigeons were all drugged. Like they drugged the birds. So Bierman, did you think, and then he told Nic Cage, hey, did you think, hey, I'm a really great actor, I can catch pigeons? Which I think is the movie in a nutshell, is the director having to say to Nic Cage, did you think you were such a good actor that you could catch pigeons?
That's not how it works.
That's not how it works. But that is how Nic Cage thinks it works. Nic Cage thinks he's so good at acting like a guy having a nervous breakdown and thinking he's becoming a vampire that he himself is able to catch pigeons in the park and put them in his mouth. Crazy stuff. Just wonderful. Anyway, another scene. You said the misfiling scene is probably the most famous because he does go through the entire alphabet. And he is screaming it, and he's doing a lot of hand stuff. He goes, he's like, not once. It's like Peter Pan.
And she's just like, dude. She's like, well, do you know who misfiled it? And he's like, who? What?
Who misfiled? Who? One thing I will say is when I first saw this movie, it reminded me a lot of Steve Martin. I thought like this would, because the way the physicality is, it's like it's a very Steve Martin kind of physical embodiment. Like it's
my gosh,
kind of Three Amigo kind of work is like very, that like, and it made me think, okay, so he's approaching comedy like at a level that, let's say, like a Steve Martin like could take and if Steve Martin went into drama.
If Steve Martin made this movie,
we would understand it better.
I feel like I would understand it better, but also at the same time, it wouldn't nearly be. I don't think it would have been as beloved as it is now.
Mm-hmm.
If that,
no, that makes total sense.
He's fantastic. Steve Martin's fantastic when it comes to physical comedy. I love Steve Martin.
So one thing that he said during the end, so he gets staked through the heart, right? So
it's not technically the heart.
Well, not technically. He just gets staked, like he does in the after claiming he's going to try to rape his secretary. The secretary's brother comes to his house, and Nicolas Cage is hiding in his coffin bed, and he's trying to stake himself, and so the guy just does it for him. So Cage struggled with how to perform the death scene. It's one of the biggest moments for any film actor, and I knew I just didn't want to die quietly. I was sick of quiet little deaths. Natural quiet little deaths are such bullshit. You scream. And that's how we get Nicolas Cage in anything, guys. That's Wicker Man. That's the explanation we all have been looking for.
You know what? I'm here for it.
That's some bullshit.
Let's get I want a book on acting by Nicolas Cage.
I want so many things.
I would love that.
Oh my God. So here's a fun fact. You know, our own Brendan Meyer co-starred with Nicolas Cage last year in The Color Out of Space, which is actually a fantastic movie. Along with Mandy, I think it's probably two of Cage's like best film in recent like performances, and they're both totally unhinged performances. Both of them are totally. Oh yeah, and also Mom and Dad. That one.
I saw that movie like a few weeks ago. That movie is a fun time. I'm not gonna lie.
Look, so he does those kind of things, but The Color Out of Space is interesting because it's a Lovecraft story, and it starts out with Cage being a normal family man, and he goes through a lot of things that happen after like a being lands in their yard in a meteorite and starts warping with time and space and energy and starts like transforming them. Brendan plays the son. I'm not going to tell you what happens to Brendan's character, but it's not great. And at one point, Nicolas Cage is talking about how he doesn't want to become like his father, and he does like a little throwaway impression of what his dad was like, and it's this voice. It's the A B C. It's that voice that we haven't heard in human history since Nic Cage did this movie. And then later, as the movie devolves, he just starts doing this voice from Vampire's Kiss. And I feel like that was a very purposeful thing where he was like, that was a choice and this is a choice, but like now you guys can see that I can do other things. But when I go crazy, what I'm imagining in my head was that guy, was Loeb.
I wonder if it's an accent he just really loves to do. If he's not necessarily trying to do a good accent, but he's trying to have fun with an accent.
Cage said, I think that people might wonder what that voice is I'm using.
Yeah. He's just having fun. He's just having fun with an accent. He's not trying to be anyone in particular.
He also said
purposefully. That's like his fun.
He also said, my entire motivation here is to see how big I could get my eyes. That's his entire motivation that he gave himself in that scene where he goes, too late. Just trying to see how big he could get his eyes. I don't think most people got the joke in this scene, he says, of a very famous scene, because they just thought it was rape. Well, that part is true. That part, Nic Cage, unfortunately, it is just going to have to go over other people's head. I just think this whole thing is such a beautiful shit show. It is such a glorious like tribute to something, much like The Way the Room is. But The Room, I don't think, The Room wasn't meant to be satire. We've just turned it into satire. Mm-hmm. This was supposed to always be a dark, dark comedy. The performance of which just centers around somebody doing something that is, somebody said earlier in the comments, theater de l'art, like, or the absurd theater. That's very true. It's beyond acting. You can't even really call it like acting. You can't call it like this guy is doing Stanislavski method, or this guy is really tapping into his childhood, or he's doing sense memory, or this guy's really doing a Mamet interpretation. It's not
he's
acting.
Having fun. He thinks he's pretending he's in an acting class. He's not trying to be anything serious. Well, or at least he's trying to be serious, but he's a bad actor trying to be serious, if that makes sense. He's like a middle school. He's like it's like how kids in middle school act in their first play.
He said, over the top is one of those things that doesn't work with me because I don't believe in such a thing. It's just stylistic choices.
That's fair. I respect
that. If you don't conceive of the idea of being over the top because you've decided to go into a movie and make up your own accent, then I guess no one can tell you otherwise. Again, if you go back and watch Peggy Sue Got Married, which is his first film, he made a very deliberate choice to make his voice sound unlike anybody else's in the entire world in that movie too. And that was his very first film. And I think what we're seeing here is a bunch of stylistic choices. And we've always been seeing a bunch of stylistic choices. So, do you have a favorite line from this film?
Like I mentioned, it would probably be the ABCD one, or Yeah, it would probably just be the ABCD one, honestly, overall.
Would you like to know what Nicolas Cage compared his performance in eating the cockroach to?
Do tell.
When people see the cockroach going into my mouth, it's like that bus blowing up in Speed. And they really react. And it's like worth $2 million in special effects. And all I do is eat a bug. So it's good business.
Is it?
Is he like, does he kind of have like a Donald Trump mentality about some things? I feel like his logic is so out there.
Well, that's why I'm kind of curious about when this commentary was done. Because
I believe he believes this till I believe he would have said this today.
Because I want to like Nic Cage, and when someone does stuff like that, I'm just like, I can't like it as much as I really want to, if that makes sense.
It does have an effect, but I don't think unless you knew he wasn't supposed to. It doesn't really hit unless you know that he wasn't supposed to eat the bug. John Leguizamo very famously, this is another thing about someone going method when he really didn't have to. In Spawn, when he was playing the villainous cartoon clown thing in Spawn, he was all bloated and stuff. He ate live maggots out of the trash off camera. No one asked him to do it, and he wasn't on screen. So why go so method for something and do something that horrible to yourself for a movie that's based on a comic book and that no one's watching because you're not being filmed?
But he didn't know that it wasn't going to be a popular movie. Maybe he thought they thought they were filming somewhere around him, and he thought he might have been in the background or something. I'm not really sure. Yeah,
I think he was probably trying to get in the head of a character that's. I think he was just.
Like Jared Leto, the way he would
exactly. Exactly like Jared Leto as the Joker.
Well, thing is, if a camera is going somewhere around the vicinity, as an actor, and if you're supposed to be somewhere in the scene at some point, even in the background, you still have to be in character. So that I can see. But if you are in between takes or something, it's just why?
I think Jared Leto is exactly the point to hit on this, because I think Nicolas Cage very famously wanted to play Superman. He was going to be in Kevin Smith's Superman. There's some B-roll that you can actually find. He's named his kid Kyle. Nic Cage is a real super comic superhero fan. He was in Kick-Ass. He was also in Spider-Verse. He would have made a great Superman. I think he would have been a very, very different. He would have made some choices that Superman is all I'm saying.
He was low-key, honest to God, my favorite part of Into the Spider-Verse, the cube.
Yeah, I think that Nick, Adam Sandler. Andy Samberg used to do this really funny Nic Cage impression on Weekend Update on Saturday Night Live, where he's I gotta go see, he used to do this thing. And then one time they got Nic Cage come on, that thing where actors meet their doppelgangers or whatever.
Yeah, their impersonators. Yeah.
But you could just tell Nic Cage loved it so much. Some people like it. Some people are some people just show up and or whatever. Nic Cage was thrilled that he's done something that's so iconic, and he's made such a legacy that people can imitate Nic Cage. He was tickled by the fact that I don't find him problematic. I know he's got a son that's very strange and might have done some bad things, but as far as I know, Nic Cage is not a problematic person.
He went to prison.
He went to prison, but I don't remember what for, and I don't necessarily even want to know right now. I'm just saying that I think Nic Cage buying up all his, Nic Cage going bankrupt because he decided to spend all his money on buying the haunted houses in New Orleans.
He's definitely
so amazing.
He's definitely, I don't want to say a problematic person, but he definitely has some. He makes me curious about his home life situation, his ego. It makes me curious about his relationships with his family, his friends. What is does almost kind of similar to Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise, I'm told from everyone that I've known that has interviewed him or has some kind of association where they're he's just always on, and he's so good at having that one-on-one connection where he makes you feel like the only person in the world. And it's incredibly great to have that, especially with someone so good.
One of those. Yeah.
But I kind of wonder how Cage is.
Do you want to know? Because I just read it.
Oh,
he based his voice on his character on his father. It used to be a very consonantal sound, he says, adding that it felt appropriate for this character. The producers apparently approached him after the film and said, "We have some concerns about this voice. We find it really distracting. We think people are going to have a real hard time understanding what this guy's doing." But just Color Out of Space, he literally says, "This is how my father used to sound," and then he does the vampire's kiss voice. Apparently, he's just doing the voice of what he actually thinks his father sounded like. And I don't remember, is Nic Cage related on his mother? I think on his mother's side to the Coppola. So his dad wasn't a Coppola. Let me double check that fact real quick, because I definitely have this Wikipedia pulled up. Coppola family Wikia.
But I am, like I mentioned, he's had a very interesting life, a very interesting upbringing, surrounded by a lot of these people. Not to say, living in Hollywood is a bad thing or a good thing. It's just like any upbringing. He has its pros and cons. But
Joaquin Phoenix grew up in a cult.
Yeah.
He was a great Joker. Jared Leto didn't grow up in a cult and was a terrible Joker. So,
also, he's low-key kind of making a cult.
I mean, I'll just say that like the Jared Leto thing is like such an apt comparison, right? Because when we think of Heath Ledger doing the Joker or Joaquin doing the Joker, especially Joaquin, those are actors who do method acting and did take that character really seriously and did make that character very, very scary. Whereas the thing about Jared Leto's Joker is it's so stupid. And we heard all these things about how he was an asshole on set and would do all these things like in method for like Zack Snyder's Suicide Squad. And you're like, why? Like we already had a serious Joker. Why? Like who asked you to be that fucking
apparently David Ayer, though. David Ayer asked them. They filmed like almost 5.5, 6 hours of footage that they cut down into like 90 minutes.
They didn't ask him to like mail a dead rat.
That's very true. But a lot of method actors can be pretty extreme. Not to say they're all as extreme as Jared Leto, because that's really taking it to a level that's like really obnoxious.
Here's the thing. Method acting refers to a very specific thing, which is the Stanislavski school of becoming in your sense memory of like drawing on experiences you've had. Going crazy and doing weird stuff and getting really into it isn't method. Like Nicolas Cage is not a method actor, neither is Jared Leto. They're not drawing on real experiences or becoming very realistic things. They are going hyper strange with it. And I think that like that's something you can leave at the door. Like you don't have to stay that weird once they call cut. I mean, if you did, like, I don't know, Joaquin Phoenix is a weird guy and we know that, but like we wouldn't let him off the set of Joker if we really thought he was taking it that seriously.
I feel like the behind the scenes stuff surrounding the Joker character in general is definitely problematic. Obviously, not only Jared Leto, but Joaquin Phoenix, but
Heath Ledger.
Heath Ledger. Even Jack Nicholson. He's mentioned in interviews that he kind of went to a really weird place. When he was filming.
He told Heath Ledger not to do it, or he told Heath to be very, very careful while doing it. And here's the thing. At the end of the day, we're talking about comic books. At the end of the day, we're talking about a bad guy, a supervillain from like a cartoon. So like Nicolas Cage is a very good, we got to kind of go off topic, but I think Nic Cage is as somebody who named his son after Superman, Nic Cage is a very good example of a very American idea of taking like comics and taking like cartoons and taking these themes that we have in stuff that are meant for children originally and making them these super serious, super big, super like devoting the craft to these things instead of letting it drop as soon as the crew's done.
Do you think his character was because I feel bad, I feel like we are technically still on the favorite line aspect of this episode, but what I'm kind of curious about is that if his character, when he was acting for this role, when he was making it, did he view it as I am performing as a man that is descending into madness? Or did he think of it as a man that is literally in the process of going through the physical transformation of a vampire?
I think it's
because
I think it would be the second. I'm sorry, I think it would be the first. Like his character thinks that he's becoming a vampire.
Yeah, absolutely.
But he's watching. We watch we watch Jennifer Beals show him Nosferatu. So whether or not like she exists or doesn't exist, he's watching the movie Nosferatu to learn how to become more like a vampire. So like I don't think Nicolas Cage entered this movie being like, let me study some actual vampires. Although again, he owns a bunch of haunted houses. He might have actually tried to go study real vampires, and then like he's like, this is how vampires act, like this. I don't know. That's the enigma of Cage.
He collects like dinosaur skulls because he can.
I'm surprised he thinks dinosaurs exist, or ever existed. He seems like the kind of person who maybe doesn't believe in dinosaurs or is a flat earther, possibly.
Oh, I don't want to give those
Maybe
people.
it's strange that he is not a Scientologist. I'll just say.
I do not want to give flat earthers even the smallest bit of acknowledgement. I don't.
The fact that his kids have been given vaccines surprises me. Or rather, it wouldn't surprise me to find out that he uses essential oils. Like, he seems like he is so out of touch with reality. And I don't know whether that's true for his actual life or not. That's just how he comes across.
I really hope that's not the case. I really hope he's one of those people that's where it's all an act.
Yeah.
You know, that he is really smart guy where he's doing this because, a lot of actors know your behind the scenes image and, especially with social media and everything right now. And, a lot of these personal acquaintances and all that good stuff, that is almost nowadays more than ever. It's just as important as your performances on screen.
Oh, yeah. If you don't want to be thought of I'm sorry? Sorry, if you don't want to be thought of as a famous person's kid, if you don't want to get a reputation in Hollywood for like nepotism, maybe don't have tantrums on all your sets. What Nic Cage famously did on this film and many others. Like, maybe if you don't want to seem like a brat or like somebody that was coddled his whole life, don't be an asshole on set. Like, that's probably the quickest way. You don't have anything else to prove to America. Just, don't be an asshole on set. Mm-hmm. And he was an asshole on set. He was very mad that they got a remote control bat for this movie. He wanted it to be a real bat, I guess, so he could, catch it out of the air. Like
he wanted to get really turned on by this bat moving around.
Can you imagine how his face felt when he was told that those pigeons were drugged? Like, it must have been like telling a child that Santa isn't real. Nic Cage thought he got so into pretending to be this dude that he caught a bat. I mean, he caught a freaking pigeon. He thought that like he was so good at pretending to be a man, pretending to be a vampire, that he caught a pigeon. And I have to give credit to that because I once caught a pigeon in Central Park with my bare hands, and I was very impressed with myself too. But my date wasn't, because I definitely picked up a bird.
That makes me just concerned for your health, for his health.
Yeah, he was very concerned.
Because if you're able to catch a pigeon, and it was probably not healthy.
No, it was not. It was not. Well, no, it was more like I was waving. I was just gesturing wildly. Maybe we're getting to it. I like Vampire's Kiss because it reminds me of something in myself where I was just gesturing wildly in Central Park once and a pigeon more like flew into my hand. And I was like, whoa. And I was like, oh shit, I have a pigeon.
Maybe that pigeon saw you and was like, mama.
Yeah. But basically, I spent all my entire life doing A, B, C, D. And when I saw this movie, I was like, somebody gets it.
It's like, that I'm not gonna lie though, I feel like this is definitely a movie that should be shown like for like theater classes acting, because I feel like if this was like a theater performance with all of its ridiculousness included, I feel like I would have such an amazing time.
Yeah,
because that level of physicality is so necessary when it comes to theater. Yeah. And but again, I would like it to start him at a 2 and then by the end get to a 10.
Does it hold up is an interesting question, because really what we're saying is, does it have a legacy? And we all know from like looking at these GIFs on the internet that a lot of people haven't seen this movie or know about this movie, but we've all used Nic Cage GIFs that are from this film. So its legacy is important. And I think the supercut of this movie achieves everything that this movie needs to achieve. I don't think you actually need to watch the entirety of this film, probably, unless you feel like it. I do recommend it, but like, I don't feel like you have to watch it. I feel like you could just watch that supercut and like know what's going on, like know the entirety of the ridiculousness of the film. Like, you don't need to watch the intercut scenes. You just could watch an 8-minute supercut of him just going apeshit and get the sense of it. But I do think it holds up because it's a cult movie. It didn't do well at the box office. No one really gave a shit at the time, but like in retrospect, a lot of people like think of Nic Cage's best performance or like most over the top performance as Vampire's Kiss.
I think I can totally understand of having such a cult following as being his most ridiculous and intense performance, just because we've seen everything that he's done. Now we have like a certain expectation of his physicality and performance overall when it comes to movies, like I said, Wicker Man, Mom and Dad, a lot of these movies, and so I think doing this movie, it was a real learning process for him, because maybe he realized he learned that he loved being this ridiculous and having this much fun with it, and where he realized, and then realized he's like, you know what, I can do all that and still dial it back down, and I'm still having that certain level of craziness
or like effect. I think he learned later that, you know, Raising Arizona, I believe, came after this. Let me double check that, but I believe Raising Arizona came after this movie. You know, his work with the Coens. Let's see. No, that was 2 years before. Sorry. That was 2 years before, and Moonlight, Andres, You Can Be, or Moonstruck, I believe, was also right before this. But when you look at movies like, let's say, Adaptation or Matchstick Men, or even like, let's see, I'm not good at movie release dates, guys. Sorry. Leaving Las Vegas, where he won the Oscar, and that's a really sad movie. That was 95. I think what he's learned to do over the years is not act so much as he's learned to go within instead of projecting it all outwards. He's learned to, like, you know, hold back and to learn how to, like, do stuff that's a little bit more nuanced and subtle. Magic Man, he's playing a guy with OCD, but like and he does have tics, and he does have, like, you know, his Nicolas Cage-isms, but he's doing them in a way that doesn't seem theatrically offensive. Or when he's doing adaptation, he's like a low energy, you know?
But also, I mean, I really loved, honestly, I loved he was incredibly subtle, and he has like some really great lines. And I know you mentioned it before, National Treasure. I love National Treasure. The movie's a fun time. It's, you know, there are moments of, you know, I'm going to steal the National Treasure. Not Josh Schultz say, I'm going to steal the Declaration of Independence.
Now I'm going to steal the National Treasure. You mean Alex Mack? National Treasure, Alex Mack.
You know what I was talking about, guys.
I do. Well, Wild at Heart, which is one of my favorite Lynch movies to this day, and it's one that you can't get anywhere except DVD, or else I would have put it on the list for stuff for us to watch. He thinks he's Elvis in that movie, or he's doing Elvis. That's great, and it's him and Laura Dern and Willem Dafoe, and that's that shit. I think, you know, put him with the right director. He went with Scorsese in this movie. I think this movie's called Bring Out the Dead, or Bring Out the Dead. He worked with Scorsese. I've never seen it, but I was just reminded of it.
Pierce in 99. Yeah, it's Scorsese. It is by directed by Scorsese. It came out in 99.
And that one's like the very forgettable Scorsese. Like, if you guys remember Bring Out Your Dead, then like good on you. That's your one. Bring Out Your Dead. That's the one where he plays a ambulance worker. I've never seen it. I just remember this coming out. It's I don't know. It'd be interesting. I imagine it's going to be it would have been a terrible example of a director, a very good director directing a very crazy actor, sort of like Leo in Shutter Island, where it's just too much. Like
he had to work with his girlfriend or wife at the time, Patricia Arquette. So. You know.
Oh, really? He just last year, I think he married and then divorced a very young woman. Like, just last year, he married and then immediately annulled the wedding. So we know that he's not sane. Not yet.
Yeah. I'm not surprised. Well, his relationship with Patricia Arquette is like really an interesting one.
Aaron Brooks. Which film is a great film? We have so many. There's so many. The Beige Volvo trilogies, which is Con Air, Face Off, and The Rock, which are movies in which a beige Volvo all explodes in each of those movies. They came out about the same time. Nic Cage in The Rock isn't doing like a very big Nic Cage. He's supposed to be playing a chemist. Like, he's supposed to play like second. He's playing the straight man to Sean Connery. And he's great in that. Con Air, he's supposed to be super serious. Face Off is the one where he's doing a lot of funsy things. But even that, he spends half the movie as Travolta. So he's actually reeling it in.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think those are the movies we think of when we think of crazy Nic Cage.
But I have to say, not only like Matchstick Men and Adaptation, like you said, we can't forget the very subtle performance with him in, I think it's Weatherman. And also the Weatherman and Family Man as well. Family Man is very underrated. Has John Cheadle, Tay Leone.
Or he gets the lottery ticket. He wins the lottery, and he promised a waitress that, like, because he didn't have money to give her a tip. Or City of Angels, even like with Meg Ryan, where he's the angel.
I love City of Angels.
Who doesn't love a good Nic Cage is the fucking romantic hero.
Nick Cage
as the angel.
Yeah.
So guys, so sorry. He's really good in Family Man. That is an underrated one. The Weatherman, I forgot. That's another one of his. Those were like the ones that.
It is one of Ben Bateman's favorite movies of all time. Actually,
The Weatherman. Yeah. Okay, that's something. Out of all the Nic Cage movies, that's his favorite Nic Cage movie.
I don't know it being his favorite. I think it's just one of his favorite movies of all time. The Weatherman.
Nic Cage movies.
I know he's mentioned in interviews that it's a very personal film to him because of his relationship with his father. It's like there's a specific conversation with his father that's incredibly sentimental. So
look, I haven't seen it. So I have no place to say. It sounds like Nic Cage also has a lot of father stuff that he draws from. So I'm not one to say right now whether or not that's one of the best movies of all time. But
his personal favorites of all time.
Nic Cage wheel slice for sure. If I gotta win a stipulation match, the only thing I would ever ask for, is a Nic Cage wheel slice. Yeah. Give me that over Denzel. I would be able to get all the answers correct. I would know everything.
My argument is for a Mel Brooks wheel slice.
Mel Brooks is pretty good. I could do Mel Brooks.
A Mel Brooks directed slice, just saying. Or just him in anything. He does a bunch of here and there, but
you do know that Nic Cage needs the fact that it hasn't been its own slice yet is very odd considering how many movies he's just been in. So many films. Somebody mentioned Fast Times, which I think was his first. I can't remember Fast Times or Peggy Sue.
Fast Times was his first movie as Brad's Bud, and he did Valley Girl right after. Valley Girl, Fish, Racing to the Moon, The Cotton Club, Birdie, The Boy in Blue, Peggy Sue got married.
Oh wow, Peggy Sue Got Married was that far along. I guess that was his big starring one.
That was in '86, and he did all those movies prior. Valley Girl, I know, was a very big hit though.
Was he a main character though in Valley Girl?
Yes, he's on the cover of the movie.
Oh shoot!
Yeah. Oh, let me see if I can bring it up here real quick. Yeah, he is.
Yeah. Sorry guys. Sorry about that. I guess I'm just because I'm thinking of Kathleen Turner's autobiography and how much she's saying that he was trying to not be a Coppola. That I just assumed that was his first time on a set. I stand corrected. He was just an asshole for most of his career trying to do that. Yes. Looks like a bird. He's such a bird man. I think if Michael Keaton hadn't played,
she's from the Valley.
If Michael Keaton hadn't played Birdman, I would have wanted it to go to Cage because no one else really could have played that sort of, that sort of embodied that sort of I used to be a contender kind of thing. Cage has ruined 2 of his films with his shitty remakes. Aaron, that wasn't his fault. That was Neil LaBute's. Wicker Man rests solely on Neil LaBute making that a terrible movie and having Nic Cage punch a bunch of women. That just wasn't a good look.
Which movie?
Wicker Man. The bees! The bees!
I to be honest, I haven't seen the Nic Cage version. I've only seen a few scenes from the movie, but I haven't seen the entire movie itself. I have
important scenes.
I've seen a handful of important scenes. However, I did see the original Wicker Man with Christopher Lee for the first time a few months ago.
Good.
I was surprised at how much I enjoyed the heck out of that movie.
You might like that. You might like Dan Stevens in what's it called? It came out on Netflix. It's called not The Crucible. It's called I will find out 1 second. Dan Stevens. It was Dan Stevens because it's very much like Wicker Man. And it's better than that Nic Cage terrible movie. It is called. Boop.
Is Lily Sobieski in it?
That's the Wicker Man. Yeah. Mm-hmm. He was in, let's see, why isn't it showing up? Anyway, I will find it for you and tell you what it is, because it is a very good film. And it was came out on Netflix. It's about a guy who travels to a remote town. The Apostle. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Aaron. The Apostle.
Wait, is that the one that came out? It was a Netflix movie.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, the guy that was in
Dan Stevens. Legion.
He was the Beast and Beauty and the Beast remake. Oh, that movie is effed up.
Yeah. Oh, you've already seen it.
No, okay, I see it. I started watching it, but 20 minutes into it, I was like, nope, can't.
It's real messed up. I would say that's a better legacy for The Wicker Man. But again, you got Neil LaBute writing a script where a bunch of women get punched in the face by your hero. I mean, that's not going to go well. So by the way, thank you, Aaron. That was going to drive me freaking nuts. Let's see. So wait, did we hear from Sean that he got some of the GIFs from this movie?
Yes.
Sean, if that's true, sorry, I just saw your chat. If that's true, maybe we can just have a little teaser. There we go. There's one. That's
so good. Okay, that's probably my favorite scene. Yeah.
Too late. It's a thankless job, Alva. Yeah, there. Yeah.
I
love you, man. And he starts vomiting blood.
Oh my god. In that scene, 100%, that is Jessica Biel. in that scene. She's like, you
Jessica
disgusting.
Biel.
Jennifer Biel. Sorry, Biel.
Yes,
That
yeah,
one.
yeah. Okay, gotcha.
Sorry, wrong one.
Whoa. You tell me this is not supposed to be a comedy? Like, of course, like, look at what he's doing. It's very, very funny. Like,
But sometimes actors don't know that they're trying to do comedies until later on.
I mean, I think this one was written as a comedy. Like, it's pretty clear it was a comedy. It's just a comedy that he took so seriously. He made it very unfun for everyone else working on the film with him.
Yeah. Well, I mentioned I kind of mentioned it because, like I mentioned, Mommy Dearest, they shot that movie thinking it was going to be a hardcore drama. They didn't go into it as a campy movie.
I watched the movie recently. I don't think it's funny. I think it's really, really messed up.
I totally agree, but like people watch and laugh at it now for no more wired hangers. Yeah, but it's talked about. It's like shown as like some of the top fan favorite camp movies. It's huge for being a super duper campy movie, especially with the LGBT community.
Yeah, but that's true. But like the scene of watching it is very painful because it is just about like abusing your adopted child. Like Faye Dunaway just does it as camp, or like she just does it. Faye Dunaway is also famously a horrible person, and this I can say firsthand because I've had to deal with her before. She is a bad person. Like she is just mom. She is just Joan. Yeah, she just is that woman. Like she's awful, and she just wigs. So that movie, like No More Wire Hangers, is a very campy line. I Love You, Mommy, Now Die was a very, very funny drag sort of interpretation of it that I really liked growing up. That was done by the guy who did Psycho Beach Party.
I love Psycho Beach Party.
Right? It was Xander from Buffy. Remember that movie?
Oh, and the like opera. And and I don't know his name. He's like on Criminal Minds, where he's like all the time. He's like, I want to be spanked. Where he's like putting his butt on her, being like, don't you want to,
Alex? That's so. I gotta tell you, out of all the movies it turns out you've seen, Psycho Beach Party.
I love that movie.
You've seen Psycho Beach Party, but not Pulp Fiction.
Priorities, man. I don't know what to tell you.
There's another movie recently that was the one you'd seen something else, and there was such a deep cut, and I was like, how? Oh yeah, House of Yes. Like, how'd you see that movie?
Cozy?
Yeah.
It's kind of weird, but I remember going to my growing up. One of my favorite things to do is my parents would sometimes we would go after if we did good at school or whatever it might be. We would go to Hastings, which was depending on where I was living at the time, was one of the big video rental stores chains at the time. It's they did music. This was in Oklahoma.
Was Hastings the name of the town, or the store was called Hastings?
The store, yes. It was. I used to live in Enid, Oklahoma, down by the base. But I remember I would just walk by and I would look at that cover in particular. The cover to me, the movie cover, it's Parker Posey, little baby Parker Posey. Like she's like doing this like peekaboo situation, but she's like dressed like Jackie O with it. She had like a gun. I remember not being allowed to see those movies until a little bit later, but that cover in particular always stuck with me.
I love her in that movie so much. Her thinking she's just that's a movie that we'll talk about some other time. Basically, guys, it's been really good to get back onto this. I know the world's crazy and we're never going to go really back to regularly scheduled programming. But it's really good to do Cinema Bias again and to do it about such a silly movie. At the end of the day, it's just what it is. Like, it is just a bauble. It's just a thing. It's just
ridiculous.
Awesome. Yeah.
It's a fun time. That's what it is.
I am glad I watched it.
No, I didn't. Yeah, I am glad I watched it. I didn't like it as much as I hoped I would. But I am glad I watched it because it's a movie that's weird, and I understand a lot of the references now. And
would you recommend it? And who would you recommend it to?
I definitely would recommend it. I feel like it's definitely very similar to Pulp Fiction, where I feel like everyone should watch it at least once or twice.
Did not know you felt way about Pulp Fiction.
I just don't like Pulp Fiction.
No, I said I don't. I mean, I don't know. I didn't know why you feel that way after watching it. That you need to recommend it to someone to watch.
Well, because I'm surrounded by a bunch of friends and family members that are cinephiles.
Okay.
And if you're a cinephile, I'm sure you'll love a lot of aspects about that movie. I mean,
one thing that I never brought up was how much my mother loves Quentin Tarantino. Like that's her favorite director, but she can never remember one goddamn quote of his. Every single quote of his movies she butchers to the extent that it's like I'm not going to try to imitate any of her misinterpretations because I will end up saying something bad. But my mom loves Quentin Tarantino.
My grandma is the same with Star Trek movies.
Weird.
My grandma,
for your grandma to be good on.
No, it's not. She's not good at it. She loves Star Trek movies. She loves fantasy. She loves Lifetime movies. She loves Hallmark Channel Christmas movies, and she loves Star Trek fantasy fan fiction. She loves Lord of the Rings, but she doesn't know any of the characters. She just calls Spock, the really funny smart one.
My mom would call me Smock. My mom would be like, Smock.
But it's also a little bit different for her because English is not her first language, and so she just for her it's just she enjoys it just for much more of the visual aspects, not so much of the conversations and the really cool conversations between these. It's a very symbolic franchise as well. When it first came on TV, obviously.
So my parents both speak English as a first language, but they both still call the actor Keanu Reeves.
It's not a typical American name, though. It's not a typical American or English name.
Yeah, but my parents just refuse to learn anything that they don't think is right. Lucas, as for me, would I recommend this movie to everyone? No. Yes, of course. Maybe. Well, you go. Why? Why not?
I wouldn't recommend it to everyone. I just recommend it to some people. I know for a fact my mom would hate this movie. Really? I know my dad would hate this movie with a passion.
Really? You don't think they would find it funny? Here's the thing. Eric did not enjoy it as much as I wanted him to either. And I was very much devastated in that moment.
It's yeah. Well, I mean, it's just that my dad doesn't like, so we bond over some weird movies, but he doesn't he's seen Psycho Beach Party and he laughs watching that, but he doesn't care for other weird movies. He doesn't care for weird ones. He just prefers The Rock and Con Air and Face Off and all that good stuff. But when it comes to any kind of comedy that's physical comedy on this, he's not a real big fan of overall, personally.
Do you think it's possible to, like Aaron's brother, somehow hate this movie? Now that's an interesting thing. Yes. How do you hate this movie?
I kind of do. Honestly.
Really?
Hate is maybe a strong word, but I don't really know if I want to see it again.
Yeah,
honestly. I really do. I feel like I took away everything that I did, that I could from it. I'm not going to watch it again and absorb it in a new way. I'm not going to learn from it.
That's just why, it's a supercut. It's a GIF. Maybe that's why the best thing about it is the stuff that's taken out of context and is used in GIFs or supercuts, because you can learn everything you need to know about its ridiculousness. You're not missing anything to not watch the scenes where he's like, I'm going to rape you, Alva. That doesn't add anything to the experience. You can literally just watch a supercut or look at the GIFs and understand that this is what it is.
Exactly. I was also annoyed with the characters, a lot of the characters overall.
Oh, yeah, very funny, and this is the last thing I'll put, is that the director who, Robert Bierman, I didn't give him a shout out, but it was a non-union shoot. So they said, hold on, very few people, let's see, hold on, where is it? Hold on. Bierman feels that most of the cast understood the film that they were making, but he said the distributor didn't have an idea about, didn't understand the material. And that's interesting, because I feel like most of the cast had no idea what they were doing. They were just trying to work with this.
I can see that. I can see the distributors not being entirely sure how to market it.
Mm-hmm.
Because especially weird comedies or horror comedies or
dark comedy, or the humor is so
comedies
dark
in general.
Yeah.
It's very specific, and it's just very difficult for companies to market because it's not traditional comedy where everyone gets it.
Yeah. I think, if you were able to watch this movie the entire way and be like, is this a comedy? Then it's not successful. And the fact is that a lot of people are going to laugh at this film and like laugh at it, not with it, or like whatever the statement the director was trying to make about a man going insane, I think ultimately probably failed because we're not taking away any message. We don't sympathize with this man. He's a terrible person and we don't care about him. And unlike Patrick Bateman, he's not a cipher for a generation. He doesn't stand for, or like he doesn't stand in place of like a concept or like a type of person. He isn't a blank. He is just like from another world. So
do you think this movie could have been made today?
I think it probably could be made much better today, and it would have had like James Franco in it.
Yo, honestly. And also I feel like we're a lot better with marketing where
James Franco, I forgot.
I think film goers are I don't want to say much more accepted, but I think film goers are a lot more okay with like watching weird movies.
Yeah, like the thing is, Nic Cage has made a career for himself, both doing high profile stuff recently, like very high profile stuff like Spider-Verse and whatever, but also like in the past 2 or 3 years, just also making a bunch of batshit indie horror movies, like the Mom and Dad one, like Mandy, like Color Out of Space, and they're phenomenal. And it's just him just raging, like it's just him going Nic Cage up to 12. So there's still a space for that. I think it's just become this niche space, and I think it would have had to have a different director and probably some rewrites. Quite honestly.
Absolutely, of course.
I think it would be so scary today, though, like to think about like this like essentially just this white dude who has the agency to do whatever and like have all this power over like his employees, and just like it really does feel uncomfortable to watch right now at this moment because you're like, oh God, like.
Do you think it could have been? It could be gender swapped or anything in any way?
No, I don't think it'd be gender. I mean, like, who would it be? Oh, you know who'd be good in a gender swap version is what's her name from SNL. Oh God, why are names blanking on me?
Kate McKinnon.
No, Kate McKinnon. Yeah, Kate McKinnon could probably slay this role. Like, I feel like she would crush it. But again, it would depend on your criteria for like what it is, like what the character was, what the motivation was, why they would be allowed to treat a guy like this. I don't think the physical threat of like somebody, like an employer keeping you after work to chase you down a hallway and threaten to rape you. Like
1 a.m.
Yeah, to the point that you had to get a gun and shoot him. At which point the horror there of that moment I don't think would play the opposite way. But Patrick Bateman probably couldn't be a woman for that reason too, or a person of color. Like these are stories about men who are masters of the universe and get away with whatever they want, and that's sort of the point of these stories. That's the satire of these stories, is that these these white guys can like create reality as they see fit.
Absolutely.
That's a fun note to end things on, guys. Cecily Tyson says somebody. That's a good idea.
I could see that. Cecily Tyson, I feel like I love her.
Is that Cecily from SNL?
She is an SNL. She's a writer, actor, but she's known for doing like the straight man characters usually. She does this character on Weekend Update that's really funny.
Cecily Strong.
Oh, you're right. You're absolutely right.
But I'm asking, is Cecily Tyson somebody else, or is it? I'm not sure. Anyway.
Oh, but she does a really funny character on Weekend Update where she pretty much does like she talks about really deep subjects. Only she doesn't know what she is talking about at the same time, and it's very obvious.
The girl at the party, girl at the party scenes where she's like also Seth. Like, but also Seth. Yeah, that was very funny. I haven't thought about it.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
I don't know what you're talking about. Hey, Alex. Yeah.
And there's like guns and soldiers.
And like that's like me trying to talk on the internet.
I don't even know anything about anything, Seth.
Alex, I never thought about it before, but you kind of have some Cecily Strong, not the character. You have some Cecily Strong vibes. Like you give me some vibes of like the actress person. No, it's a compliment. She's so pretty.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah.
So pretty. Guys, do we know what we're gonna do for next week? I guess we've been sort of playing this loose and fast and loose for today.
Something a little bit lighter. I guess we're gonna be going back to the movie that we've been wanting to do for a little bit. We are going to be doing A Little Princess, and do we have the thumbnail by chance? No.
Not sure. Let me check.
No big deal.
Vamp for a second while I go check if Robert's if I even told Robert about this. I think he did send us something.
No, he already made it, but we weren't able to. We weren't able to do it though.
Let me see.
Just to give you a little idea, there's a lot of different adaptations of A Little Princess. Everyone's with like Shirley Temple, all that good stuff. But the version we're talking about in particular was actually, if I can pull it up, it was actually released in 1995 by an Oscar-winning director. Little did we know, it was actually directed by Alfonso Cuarón. Now,
whoa, really? I didn't know that. I don't know anything about this movie. I've never even heard of it.
It's really, really wonderful. I'm not going to go into a lot of the details, but it's a movie that I grew up watching, loving. It's very beautiful. Like visually, it's quite stunning. There's a handful of like little known actors that a lot of people forget about. I mean, Liam Cunningham, he's in it. Actually, you know what? That's like one of the only actors I see. But it's really pretty solid. It's heartbreaking. It's it's based on the book that I feel like everyone, especially a lot of little girls, grow up reading at some point in their lives.
I have no idea literally this is like you were telling me like about like a Mandela effect. Like I have no idea what this movie is.
Okay, that's totally fine. Okay, that's totally fine. Just want to give you a quick summation. Yeah. It's about a wealthy little girl from India, an English little girl in India. Her father's in the military. He goes to war. She ends up going to a boarding school, and it's not spoilers. Right. She ends up going to the first 10 minutes. She ends up her father takes her to a boarding school down in the UK, and during that time, things happen where she is stripped of a whole bunch of money, and a lot of things come up. The cinematography in this movie is quite stunning as well. I'm excited for you to watch it. But there's
starting to ring a bell. Like I'm starting to have like flashback. I think I might have caught some of it as a child. Like it passed by me, but when you said she was stripped of all her money, okay. I kind of sort of remember something, sort of.
Exactly. But what I do love about this movie is that it's a story that everyone knows, but visually it is definitely, I don't know many movies like it, which I really, really love,
Ryan said it is heartbreaking, so I am definitely not looking forward to that. Was looking forward to something a little lighthearted after this thing we're having, but hey, not everything can be escapism. That's for sure.
It's heartbreaking, but it's not that heartbreaking. Just to clarify, so it is. You don't have to be a girl to enjoy this movie. You don't have to be a child to love this movie. It's beautiful, regardless, and it's really fantastic. But also, when I say the visuals are great, it was nominated for 2 Oscars. 2. Including cinematography.
Guess how many Oscars this movie was nominated for? Vampire's Kiss. 0 Oscars.
Not every, but also, I mean, this is a very, even though the movie is set in the UK and India at different times, it's incredibly Mexican film. A lot of behind the scenes actors, people involved are Mexican, the director, the cinematographer, etc. But the cinematographer in particular, Emmanuel Lubezki, I can't pronounce it, also is a cinematographer behind Children of Men, Gravity, The Revenant, Birdman.
Aren't those all Alfonso Cuarón movies?
The New World, Limited Tickets, A Series of Unfortunate Events.
So it's just like Alfonso Cuarón really likes the cinematographer.
Yeah, cool. Essentially. But it's really
Alfonso
great.
Cuarón stuff. I mean, his stuff, I can't watch Revenant. I can't watch Gravity. I get too anxious. His style and the subject matter he takes on is often very vast and existentially terrifying to me. So I'm excited to watch this movie, which just seems existentially sad. That should be different.
It's sad, but it's sad in the way a children's story is sad. So it's not going to make you like openly weep with like snot up and down your sleeves kind of thing. But you're going to be like,
oh, good. Because I'm looking forward to it. And guys, by the way, if you haven't already, please like and subscribe to this video. Even if you, like Alex, didn't love it, Even if you like Alex in this, and as her take on Vampire Kiss, maybe you just didn't love it. Just like and subscribe to it anyway. Pass it on. Share it.
But also, let us know in the comments, what other movies would you like us to really chat about? Drew, are we going to make Eric's questions a thing in the future for all Cinema Bites?
Oh my gosh, that's right. In between the craziness, guys, we did the other week for Crouching Tiger, did ask a couple. We did a little mini trivia skirmish. Last week was so insane. We weren't even sure when we'd be back to be doing Cinema Bias. Like, we were just, I think we're all just kind of trying to distract ourselves from whatever's going on. So it's been difficult. So that I don't think that it even occurred to either one of us. I could have come up with a couple of questions on this one, but yeah. So we'll try to figure it out going forward. It's definitely good for me to get practice writing questions while watching movies because it makes me pay attention to them more. So we'll see. We'll see about that. Getting maybe a little five or six questions about a little princess for you to take a quiz on. So Alex, where can people find you besides in your tower with your crown?
You can find me at Disneyland, as the evil queen, But you can find me on Twitter up there in the corner at @real_AlexMac. You can also find me over at the Call to Action podcast. I actually did a little bit of a reaction earlier today, right before this. And
Alex, get off. You got to come do our podcast.
I know. For some reason, I had in my head that we were filming starting at 10:30, and I have no clue why. So I was like, I'm going to start at 8:30, and it's going to be totally fine.
I also got the time wrong.
Yeah, but regardless, it's all good. We survived. And but you can find me there on Twitter, and you can also, like you mentioned, just come hang out with me, react to Schmoedown stuff. I do a whole bunch of stuff over there and doing Schmoebaits, Schmoedown themed debate shows. So it's a fun time.
And speaking of which, we can also catch you sometimes on Friday nights belting out some tunes over on Video Karaoke, which is something I do over on Twitch, twitch.tv/VideoDrew. I also do live stream movie watch along nights. Anything that's on Amazon Prime, I can do watch alongs with, where if you have Amazon Prime, you can watch along and you're on your computer, you can watch the movie with me, and I'll be in a corner and the movie will be playing. And it's a really, really fun thing, as opposed to having to find the DVD and press play at the same time as the commenters. We can just do it at the same time. I think tomorrow we might be doing Cabin in the Woods.
What time?
I think we don't want to interrupt with Schmo Bates, so I think it was going to be in the afternoonish.
Oh, well, I was actually going to ask, you want to be a judge with me, a person?
Yes.
So tomorrow at 9:30 Central, 7:30 Pacific, it's going to be between Rachel Silvestrini and Danielle Ramirez. So they're both sitting out. Yeah, it's going to be great. Really awesome. Rachel Silvestrini is sitting at 1-1.
Are you at the skirmishes? You guys are doing you're doing the battle rounds. This is a tournament, right? You guys are in the tournament.
This is the first round tournament for them. Yeah.
So going forward, after the tournament's over, you have to get Andres Gallagher. So you got to get him up in Schmo Bates because he's
dude needs to respond to my messages.
Andres, you're all up in this comment section. Respond to Alex's messages. Guys, otherwise you can find me on this channel. Mondays, Thursdays, we do the VideoChronic Pop Culture Quiz. Tuesdays, we do Cinema Bias. Fridays, like I said, I'm over on Twitch, where I also intermittently do streams. And then Sundays, we're going to kind of change up the format of In the Dark with Video Drew, which is a live show that I started a week before the events of last weekend. And I've been trying to reconfigure and figure out how to do a show in character with all that's going on in the world. And I think we have a fun idea for this Sunday that might not be it might not be YouTube. It might actually be Twitch as well. So keep your eyes peeled for that space. It's going to be 8 p.m. PST on Sunday night. So that's all from me. Otherwise, Twitter, all the things at VideoDrew, and Patreon, where you can go and suggest movies for us to watch on Cinema Bias and write in questions. So, too late.
Oh, Darren, I can see you asked for my Twitter, and it's right up there at the corner. It says @real_AlexMac.
@real_Alex, @VideoDrew. I like the shadow work there. It's real good shadow work.
I love me some shadow work. Oh, thank you, Adam. All right, she is frozen, but that's okay, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. Oh, there it goes.
Yeah. Anyway, I was just going to say goodbye. We know you have a lot of things to watch and you have a lot of choices, so we appreciate you coming in and hanging out with us. And yeah, have a good goth IHOP to you all. Goodbye, guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye.